Dear members and other guests who have tuned into this live stream, this is the 25th anniversary of the Nordic Chamber's annual AGM, or annual GM. For those who don't know me, my name is Nils Evans and I am the president of the Nordic Chamber, and I shall proceed over this meeting. We have, for obvious reasons, had to move the AGM from March 11th and also change the format. So instead of a physical gathering, we have to do this live stream. So I'm very happy to have my old friend Tomas Sedlacek as keynote speaker today. He probably does not need much introduction, but apart from his academic accolades, he spread a calming and optimistic message to the Czech citizens during the whole COVID lockdown, which was even referred to in Norway's biggest news broadsheet, Aftenposten, more than one time. Tomas has been working as advisor for Havel and Prime Minister Sobotka. He's an author of books, the most famous, Economics of Good and Evil, and he's a popular columnist. And he's currently chief macroeconomic strategist of CSOB. Apart from being a young gun star of economics, he's a scholar and gentleman and also a good judge of beer. And it is a great honor for me to hand over the word to Tomas, who will give us an insight into the future of wealth of nations. So please come, Tomas, and there will be a Q&A.
Really good to see you. Sorry for coming late. I'm so used to doing everything from home now with the video conferences.
Yeah, if you can't. Well, here we are. Please. So, how has COVID treated you? You've been at home and writing newspapers and thinking a lot.
Yeah, I didn't have the break that I thought I would, but it's really interesting because except the businesses like yours, which have been successful for many years, it's like this overworked society suddenly has to take a break. And it was an interesting debate because my father, month into the quarantine, said, so little and the economy collapsed. And I said, no, Father, I think it's the other way around. What's interesting is that the economy didn't collapse. If you think about it, we stopped everything that we could stop, maybe even unnecessarily from the benefit of hindsight, but the economy functioned. Was there anything that you missed? The whole supply chain, which is truly global, was there was only psychological shortages of toilet paper and things like that. So I try to look at it positively. I try to look on the silver lining of this cloud that's just maybe already passed.
Well, I hope you are right, but I feel the worst is still to come before it gets better. But like you said, after the battle, everybody's a general. Right. So we will see how it pans out. So please feel free to start on your lecture, and we look forward to that.
It's just a short thought, because this is something that I have been really writing and thinking about for the last, I think, 12 years. How from the very beginning of mankind, if you look at it, we've always not been happy with the world around us. If you take religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, this world is really, a nuisance, a place where temptation lies, but the real truth is spiritual. And even if you go before religion was born, we had mythology. And even in the myths, there were these two worlds. One was the world of real, and then was the world of gods and stories and Thor. And I'm just now reading the Finnish Kalevala.
Oh, really?
So it's quite interesting, quite similar with the Norse mythology. And there were gates from this world to the mythological world, either a magical gate or in Christianity, the sacrifice of Jesus Christ sort of merges the two worlds together. So since the beginning, when human consciousness was born, this is by psychoanalysts, the likes of Jung and others, is described as the most ancient archetype, and that's the archetype of a trickster. The archetypes go trickster, which is the oldest hero, then a bearer of culture, Moses,
Yep.
Romans, and then it comes a muscle man. So the Superman, Spider-Man, the sort of a, when you think of a hero, you think of a muscled guy who solves everything with a fist. That's a very late development of the archetype of a hero. And then the last stage is twin, an entity that fights with oneself. A good example of that would be the movie Matrix, where at the end of the day you find out that Neo and Agent Smith are really one and the same. Or if you think maybe a movie that everybody knows, Fight Club. At the end of the movie, you discover that you're fighting your own son. Tyler Durden was also the other guy.
I must admit, I've neither seen any of them, but
I'm leaving
it could
this
be
studio
like
immediately.
it could be like Republicans and Democrats as well.
Yeah,
It's
you have not seen Matrix?
Same shit, new rapping.
You have
kind
not
of thing.
seen Matrix?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God! Well, next time we have to catch up. But anyway, the trickster figure is a figure that realizes that it cannot fight the reality directly. So a bear attacks you, and there is no way that but you can do it with a trick. So you don't fight the bear directly. You maybe dig a hole, or you use sticks.
Sure.
You use a trick. So that's one facet of the trickster. And the second facet of the trickster is that he or she, I always imagine that it's a she, can invent worlds that don't exist. A world where the bear doesn't eat me, but I eat the bear, is a world that was crazy, stupid, fantastically non-existent. And yet they brought this world apart. So anyway, since the moment when our consciousness woke up from the animal, we tried to get rid of the nature that we started dressing. We're not comfortable in our own skin. I always, when I have a lecture where there is more people, I say that this room is warm enough for all of us to sit here naked. We don't dress because we are cold. We dress because it would feel really unnatural to be not natural.
Absolutely.
So you feel better in somebody else's skin. I don't even know who made it. Tommy Hilfiger, Hugo Boss, than you feel in your own skin. And so my point is that since the beginning, when we took a stone from the ground and discovered that it's easier to cut the tree with a stone than with nails or maybe teeth, we started giving our spirit to dead objects. So the stone suddenly became alive with our intent. Now, fast forward to today, and enough of ancient history, we still use the stone, only it's tortured stone, which we call the cell phone. Cell phone, if you put it into an oven, it will melt back into the stone. And this stone is tortured and burned and flattened and hit upon and taken from depths of the ground where only dwarves are allowed to go. And we've beaten it so that it can play Tetris. And my point, and I'm getting to cover it right very quickly, is that we've always created artificial worlds when you see a theater performance or when you see. Which movie did you see?
A
lot of movies. Okay.
Matrix.
Would you see, I don't know, Shakespeare?
I did.
Let's maybe Shakespeare. You know that it's fake, that guy who is acting Romeo isn't really Romeo, and maybe Romeo and Juliet never probably existed in the first place. And yet, when the act is done just right, when the trick is done well, you are weeping and you're hoping that it ends well. And
I mean, that's the whole thing about movies. You have to be able to live yourself into the movie,
Right.
Otherwise it doesn't affect you in any way. So.
Yes, you have to believe it.
Believe it.
For the duration of the movie, it's like a hypnosis or a guided meditation. So when you put on Star Wars, George Lucas uses a lot of money and a lot of tricks to meditate you for, I don't know, 2 hours to believe that there are aliens.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've always been moving from the real world, and I'm just giving a very, very brief summary, the history of Christianity, the history of art. We are always fleeing the real. And now, I've been always saying that we have been moving into the digital realm, and that this is maybe the first generation that will have the center of mass or the center of gravity no longer in this world, but already in the virtual world. So when you read a book and the book is good, you forget for a little while that you are Niels reading the book in Prague, but you are Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, and you're playing together. And for little seconds, you can even call it like out of body travel.
Yeah,
over
you
spirit.
become the protagonist kind
Yes,
of, and
yes,
that's the
yes,
whole purpose
yes,
of the exercise.
Exactly. And now we have a digital world where you can not only do this for a couple of seconds, but you can, not yet, but it's perfectly imaginable that you spend majority of your time in this virtual realm. So I have this lecture that I've been going around the world called The Great Movement of Nations, no longer from place A to place B, like back in the day, but from A to a non-existent world, which is more real than reality itself, and that's the world of internet. That's the world of, like Peter Pan used to fly to Never Ever Land, I think it was called, right? And his trick was a fairy with magic wings. Our trick is a cell phone. That's our gate. And what COVID has done is it changed the slow migration, which started 20 years ago. We still remember the time where we only had like the old phones. Who would have guessed that phone would develop into a gateway into a new world, right? So within 20 years, we have built this world which is almost habitable. So my prediction is that within, let's say, and I've already made this prediction, I think 5 or 7 years ago, that in 30, 40 years, the shoe industry will go bankrupt because we will no longer use shoes. Where maybe we'll have 1 or 2 pairs, but it will not be something that you will wear daily. We will move into the virtual world, our labor, our entertainment, our social contacts, our whatnot. What will remain in, you know how our children call this world? Have you ever heard of IRL?
I have to admit, yes, I should say.
No, I haven't heard anything about it either. Only like a half year ago I came home and my son was explaining something that they made a transaction. He wanted to send some money to his friend, and he didn't have PayPal, so they had to do IRL. I said, what do you mean? Is that like a new payment method that I'd never heard of? No, you don't know what IRL means? And I said, I don't know what it means. He says, that's your world of boomers in real life. IRL is in real life. So we are, for example, meeting IRL.
Good to know.
Which is quite an exception after these 3 months where we haven't met anybody IRL. And
we met on the street.
We met on the street, IRL, right? But otherwise, the younglings, the new generation, which is already native to the internet, calls us boomers. I don't know if you know this,
no,
but we are like baby boomers, maybe a little bit older than us. But and I think the IRL is not just in real life, but it also means irrelevant.
Okay.
so
that I can relate to. That we are becoming irrelevant for them. Yeah.
The whole world becomes irrelevant. It's a place where you go to eat. It's a place where you meet your parents, but otherwise you spend most of the days and COVID has made this slow migration into an evacuation.
But there is still a basic need that needs to be fulfilled. You need care and love, and you need groceries, and you need to go somewhere and have your beer. You cannot do everything in a bulb at home.
Yeah, not everything, but majority of things you can. So this real world will be the place where we'll go to eat, reproduce, and maybe have like Christmas, maybe. But otherwise everything else
You don't
will
think
be-
we will go around on scooters anymore, or play football, or hockey, or ski,
that
or
will
sail?
be that
or...
will be very, very, very rare, I think.
Oh, well.
It will be, so this world, the world in which we live, is, well, let me put it this way. The internet is not just more efficient, cheaper, faster,
Sure.
but we've also learned one new thing, which we didn't know half a year ago, that it's also healthier.
Yeah, well.
Because this world suddenly got infected by this invisible enemy, which is deadly, very unlikely, but deadly. And it scared us to the point that we evacuated almost everything we could into, except of course the area of your business. But it worked. That's the whole magic. Imagine that this COVID situation would happen, let's say, in early 90s, where we didn't have our second world, the never ever land of internet developed.
Like
that would really be
could
a
have been a
collapse.
Spanish flu
That
incident.
would really have been hundreds of thousands of dead, and then the economy would really collapse. Here, now I'm exaggerating a little bit, we almost didn't, as if we didn't notice. I mean, I still had my orange juice from Spain, I had my forks from China, the whole chain of supply, which is a very complex thing,
Sure.
and a lot of things can go wrong, was actually undisturbed, except for the shortages of toilet paper and,
Sure, sure.
and things like that, that were rather psychological than real. So what surprised me is that this world is functional. It's a virtual world, but it's functional. We really could. So there's a problem here. Well, we just moved into, and for 3 months we survived. And also, I don't know how it is in Norway, but the lack of celebrations when the quarantine was over, I thought we were going to celebrate like crazy. We haven't seen each other for 3 months. For God's sake, we couldn't even see our parents properly. We couldn't go to pub. Us Czechs couldn't have our, čepovaný pivo, which is much more important, I'd say, to the nation than religion today.
Of course.
And now the pubs are open. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, cool. But there isn't anything, there isn't like a carnival going through Prague that we survived, that we can now breathe again. We don't have to wear the masks no longer.
But I think that will slowly come. I think that when people know that there is no risk related to going out, everybody knows that
Let's
a
hope.
vaccine is there. I think everybody
Let's hope that
come out and
there will be a celebration. But
there will be big celebrations.
Hope so. But so far, my reading of it is that we didn't miss so much in the virtual world. I had parties with my friends. We were all separated. Everybody was at home. I could work. No big companies. Actually, the big companies are finding that their managerial structure is completely ill-fit. And this is a story that I'm quite sure you've heard yourself many times, but a friend of mine was a dean, or is a dean of a university, and he said that they had this special internet committee for the past 10 years, and their role was to try and put everything online and be digital. And they didn't achieve much. It became rather a nuisance and a boring meeting to attend. And then when COVID started, everything they ever planned and 2 times more was done in 2 minutes. And another surprise, and I also feel this as it's serendipity, that the world of internet was quite ready. We didn't need to produce Skype. We didn't need to produce web meetings. They were there. I remember from late 90s I used ICQ. I don't know if you, back in the day, 97, 98, ICQ, which is like...
Was that in Matrix as well?
No, that was in real life. And it's a little bit like WhatsApp today.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But the functionality, my point is that the functionality has been here existed for 20 years. Skype exists for also a couple of decades, but we've never really fully used it. So I'm making fun of my friends' managers, saying, why did you need this brutal quarantine for you to actually go online? You can now sell your building. All the businesses, they were always, reading the business Harvard Business Review and studying the efficiency of the processes and structures and flow charts and whatnot. And nobody's really made the step towards, okay, you all stay at home. we can sell the building and we can work completely differently, way much more efficiently. Just the 2 hours that you save. Now I don't know if it's an average time, but I would say that it takes maybe.
I think it's if coming and going to a meeting takes an hour or two. That's
there
for
you
sure.
go. There you go. So
if it's 15 guys at the meeting, you
Right.
save 30 hours.
There you go. There you go. So I know this a little bit because I'm driving around Prague with a unicycle, and the moment it's broken or something, it takes me half an hour, not 5 minutes, but half an hour to get from it. If I have 5 meetings a day, you waste half of your day. Well, I quite enjoy it, but half of the day is unproductive. So just this small little thing that you save 2, maybe even 3 hours a day means that you're saving a third of your work day a day. And if you add that in a week, of course, we can all do the math. So this is another surprise. Serendipity is in the fact that the internet was ready. It wasn't like, oh my God, we don't have voice-enabled chat, let's wait for one more week. And that the world of internet is actually habitable and it functions really, really smoothly. And also, let's hope the celebrations come. But so far, my feeling is that it wasn't terrible that we, were like, oh, we can't see each other. We didn't miss much, very, very, very terribly.
Well, what we missed was there was a lot of pay cuts. There was a lot of layoffs. There was a lot of sickness. There was a lot of course. So I would say on this, we have this whole thing behind us. There is reason to celebrate. But
that's right. That's right.
But it's not behind us.
No, but the quarantine, the most stringent part of quarantine is it's very difficult to celebrate when it's gradual, of course. But I don't think anywhere in the world I've seen. I didn't see any pictures of people actually, celebrating, or that the theaters would make some sort of a burning of the masks.
I think people are still a bit afraid to go and celebrate, and the hot spots have been partly restaurants that have circulated airplanes, bars are still closed. You're not allowed to open bars because they are hotspots for new outbreaks. So I think the celebrations will.
Well, you can
take
open
some
bars,
time.
but you have to close them at 11. At this.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
what's the point, right?
What's the point?
Yeah, but I'm trying to read this. Of course, it's painful. It wasn't voluntary. Nobody wanted it. But I'm trying to read this as a sort of. I'm trying to give it sense in the history of mankind, of us actually leaving this world behind. There are many philosophers who speak about this. Also, a quote that happened in Matrix, where I think it's Jacques Derrida who. Oh no, was it Derrida?
Don't ask me.
Anyway, another French philosopher, who it wasn't Derrida. It was. I'll think of the name. Simulation and Simulacra is the name of the book, and there he claims, and this is decades old, that we will leave behind the desert of the real. We will evacuate the real. It will be just a desert. But our lives will be lived elsewhere. Also, another interesting thing is this wave of nationalism that happened, which to me was a great disappointment, because it seems like all this 70 years we've been working on putting European Union together, and United States were opening to the world and become the consciousness of the world. Suddenly they're building a wall, and we are not using European structures to deal with the illness, which is also pretty well. You can see that the European Union is not a health organization. We can't coordinate ourselves on health. It's an economic.
Sure.
So let's hope that we'll coordinate ourselves now, because when the first hit came, it's absolutely natural. Our lizard brain, which is older, by the way, than the trees, millions of years older than the trees, naturally does this when you don't know where, but you expect to be hit, but you don't know from where. There's nothing, and that's exactly how nations behaved. They just forget about everybody else. I am protecting my own skin. But now that the pandemic seems to be over and the economy is opening again, now is a good time not to use our lizard brain, but to actually use a more sophisticated frontal part of the brain and try to do this together, because it would be very, very unfortunate if governments start subsidizing national companies so as to create a competitive advantage over another country. So
Sure.
if Germany, for example, reimburses 100% of whatever,
Airlines or
yeah, or restaurants or whoever, and Czech Republic only decides to reimburse 50%, and the Germans decide to also electricity and rent and pretty much everything, then Czech companies, no matter how hard we will try, will be uncompetitive. The Germans will have
Sure.
much, which we don't want. This is not something that so our way out of this should be coordinated and work together. Another more philosophical point here is that what we haven't noticed, that not just is the internet connecting everybody, it is a paradox in the day and age where we have this nationalism. This is happening with the background of the whole world being connected with the internet. So politically, we are rather, maybe not, but the world has never been so interconnected like it is today. So in one way, you could also say that we've built a new nation,
Sure.
which doesn't have any borders, is not a nation. You can be a member of it. You don't have to put any tests. You don't have to migrate. So the next question is, this place we are migrating into, how does it look like? What are the politics of it? So if you think about it, you can become a member of this nation called the internet. Everybody can do that. You only need to have a cell phone. And it's interesting because this new world, this new state, this new nation, this new world that isn't really a world.
New media.
Yeah, it doesn't have a ruler. There is no elder of the internet. The rules are very, I think anarchists would be very happy because it's a very spontaneous
Sure.
world. Also, communists would be very happy because everybody's pretty much equal. A rich person doesn't have much better internet than my 13-year-old child or a 13-year-old child from India or from rural China. It's the same internet for everybody. It's also a nation that is able to fight wars. It was interesting because now that, for example, when Breivik did his abominable act, he did it in 3 steps. First, he planned it, then he executed it, and then he watched what's happening online. And what his compatriots did, somebody was very clever, and he immediately after this happened, he called all his friends to tag the name Breivik with dog shit. So whenever you type the name Breivik, you got the images of dog shit. So when Breivik was typing his name, he immediately got the response of an army who was protecting the internet from such abominable acts. Mm-hmm. This was done without a single bullet shot. This was done without a single penny spent. But you could see that the young people, the young inhabitants of the internet, were able to protect in their own way, spreading his fame or information. So in a nutshell, it's a world where this is also, if you want to go a little bit mythical, if you want to make your own conspiracy theory, and I'm saying this is just a joke, but one way how to read COVID is a common eye, because vid in Latin means to see. Mm-hmm. Vision comes from it. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. And co is together. So one way how to read this is that we just gained a common eye. I can see into Oslo, I can see in Beijing, I can talk with my friend in Japan, I can watch a football match in North Korea, but not North Korea is the only place that I can't, but otherwise, pretty much everywhere. My eyes now are omnipresent. Which is also interesting because eye is a very strong mythological symbol. You know that God is very often depicted as an eye. Also the very popular for the conspiracy theorists, the Illuminati have an eye, and there's all these debates about the American dollar, what the eye there means. But this eye is something that watches you. Again, when we were in the nature, our eyesight was very weak, especially in the night, but also during the day. Human beings don't have excellent eyesight compared to other animals. So we were very often hunted and we were watched. Till today, you have the feeling that somebody's watching you. We can't really scientifically explain, but it does exist and it works. Somebody's looking at you, you somehow feel it. So that was the beginning. That was a scary, when somebody gazed at you, it was a scary gaze. It's also when some people have problems with speaking in public because too many people are watching them. The body starts rushing adrenaline. people blush, and they hit or run reaction is actually invoked until today, 2020. So that was the first feeling of being watched. Second feeling of being watched then comes from theology. The great God who is always watchful. In one of the Psalms, King David, or the author of the Psalms, actually says, "Please look away from me so that I might rest a little bit." In Czech, "Odvrať ode mě svůj pohled, Hospodine, abych okřál." Please leave me for a little while alone. You have seen The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Okay, good. There we go.
But I don't remember it very
Okay,
well.
but you remember the greatest evil in the Tower of Khazad-dûm.
I'm not sure.
Is this a big eye?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's got this, it looks like fire. And whenever Frodo or somebody else puts on the ring, the eye immediately sees him and finds him. Okay, what's my point? My point is that that this natural predatory eye turned into theological eye, now turned into an eye of the internet. We are watching each other. If anybody wants, they will know everything about you or I. We're basically recording everything, every step we make. It's like George Orwell's Big Brother is watching you. And so you could read this nicely in and again, I'm saying this is just a joke, but you could read it nicely as a conspiracy that now we can see everything, and it has become very tortuous. The look of the internet, the judge. It also has. That's what I'm trying to say. It has a moral dimension to it. It's watching you, it's following how morally you behave.
Everybody can write what they want about you without being stopped, and also you can be followed everywhere.
Yes.
And there's just a matter of time before you have chips in your car. Every time you go speed, you just be deducted from your account. And there's, of course, implications to that, numerous. So
it's interesting when you listen to Tomas Masaryk, our first president, who was really a very, very interesting character, philosopher, sociologist, but you can look it up on YouTube. It's also wonderful to see him speak in English. There is I think it's 3 minutes clip where they are recording his video blog today, you would say, and where he's greeting the American friends in English, and he's saying, I'm just going to reproduce it, but it's pretty much, he goes as quickly as this. It's really very sharp. He says, "Congratulations, our American friends. Now we can also see each other, not only hear each other, and I congratulate you on making movies where both sound and movement is coordinated. But I dream of even a more radical invention." Tomas Masaryk says 100 years ago. "I believe that one day we'll be able to see each other in real time. I will be able to see you in your living room," and he even says wirelessly, which is funny. And as a sociologist, he says, "I will be able to see in the middle of a jungle from the comfort of my living room. But what's even more interesting, I will be able to see in the middle of a culture from my couch." So this has come to truth. And then he continues, which is interesting. And he says, "And then we will know everything about everybody, and the age of pretense will end, and the age of lies will end. So Tomas Masarek, compared to how we feel about it today, is reading it in, yeah, that will be the end of lies, that will be the end of hypocrisy. We will all admit that we sometimes do, really dirty things here and there, and we will be able to live with, we'll be able to forgive ourselves somehow. So anyway, that's my take on it. As optimistic as I could have been. We've also saved many more lives than we've lost because of air. There are 40,000 Chinese more alive because the air is cleaner. Because of the lack of stress. I was just doing an interview for the Japanese TV yesterday, and in Japan they have a word for it. It's called karoshi. Karoshi is if you die while you work.
Oh, really?
And it's a legal term. If you karoshi, then your wife, usually it's the males who do it this way, she gets some it's a phenomenon.
It's like the Vikings to Valhalla died with his sword.
That's right. This one was like that, only where your sword is in your the pen is mightier than sword, I think.
Exactly.
So we are living in an overworked society, and the Japanese society is one of the richest societies in the world. I would understand that if my children and my wife and my family would be dying out of hunger, I would lay my life so that they would have enough to feed. This is natural and noble thing to do. But this is not the situation of Japan. They have like plenty of money. It's just some sort of as if a game or something that boys got too entangled in. So we got this. You could also read it as a sort of a gift of, now you relax, you have enough, you don't have to worry about it. The government somehow, even though I understand, and I've heard the same stories that you gentlemen have been sharing, how impossibly foul and complicated that path was. But anyway, the government wants to help. This is also quite new. We are, of course, criticizing it, and I agree with you 100%. It could have been done much smarter. But there's never been in the past a government that would care about the well-being of its people, and was very, very exceptional that during the feudal times the kings would actually, if the fact that the government tries to fulfill the wish of the people is a novelty.
They have to be re-elected, so
but this is new. In the feudal times, you didn't care. I mean, because there were no elections. Simply, you cared for your own kind, and you waged wars, and you didn't give a thought. The good kings did. I don't know if you have this in your lore.
Yeah, I guess so, but they built that wall, right?
The Hunger Wall,
The Hunger Wall.
And Charles IV is known that he would take a disguise and he would just go among the people and ask them about their opinion. But that's it. That was like the maximum. Today, the government is reading the lips of the public. What is it that you want, and we'll do it. We just don't know exactly what you want.
And they got an army looking for it.
And they have that's a very nice way of putting it. They have an army of sociologists and psychologists and marketing gurus trying to, what is it that you want? And we'll give it to you because we want to be re-elected. No government has ever needed this. And I'm thinking of kings and dictators and tyrants and rulers. Also, maybe this new world will be read in a way that, for the first time in the history of the stories of the world of every single nation got synchronized because of the coronavirus. I mean, we've had global wars, like the world wars, but they didn't affect everybody, thank God, the same. And also, we were fighting against Germany. Germany was fighting against us. Japan was, we had our heroes were their enemies, and the other way around. This time, the story is the same for everyone. We have a common enemy. We agree on the story
and to fight it,
and how to fight it. And I'm just thinking that this, I think, never happened in the history of mankind. Maybe with the exception of flood, because flood is a story that appears in every mythology. Be it even Eskimos have it, Egyptians have it, Hebrews had it, Sumerians had it, the Aztecs have it. So probably there was some sort of an event that traumatized the whole world at the same time.
Well, you got the Black Plague, you got the Spanish flu.
Yeah, but that didn't happen in China.
No,
it didn't happen in this time. we are coordinated. We are watching the same series. I don't know, everybody's watching maybe Stranger Things or football. But this time, it's not just watching, it's a personal experience. Almost every human being in this world experienced how it is to be locked in the prison of your own home, and how is it to suddenly, do things differently. So it's not just a story that we read, but it's an experience that we've lived together. And also sort of optimistic way how to look at it is that now every nation has a moment to reset the story. We're all we synchronize the starting point. Of course, Norway is in a very different situation than Czech Republic, but in this way, we now have our stories can evolve as if reset. So for somebody who was thinking about this, or for philosophers or psychoanalysts, this is an extremely interesting time, and it might well be a sort of a big step in the process of evacuating this danger. This is a dangerous world, We can get hit by sun anytime. There are asteroids. People are crazy. So sooner or later, I don't think we will evacuate the world like in Star Trek. Star Trek, it's a little bit like Star Wars. But they were trying to sort of, Captain Kirk was going from one planet to another and, claiming it somehow. I think we will evacuate into a different space.
Good. On that note, do you have a closing comment? Because now we have 10 minutes to do a Q&A here.
I'd rather leave more time for every sentence was a closing sentence.
Okay, very good. Okay, so here we have Björn with a question. And it says, so in the virtual world, there is likely no need for offices. So the future office is virtual, from home, ?
Yeah.
Or what will then be the new demands of your home, except for good internet?
Bjorn, I think this is exactly correct. We now have two homes, sort of. One is your home, and the other was your office home. You spend there 8 hours, which is half of your waking time. We don't call it home, but it sort of is your home. And then you have chata. Your people are used to having some
We have
houses.
a chata.
You have a chata. So we have 3 residences, which is like a luxury that is really, 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 really huge. And all you will need, I think even future meetings when you go for a date, you
screen it first.
You will maybe this is a good idea. You don't need this because the views from your restaurants are outstanding, but I could open a restaurant here. I could invite you for dinner, and we would just have some sort of something in our eyes. And I would invite you to, I don't know, see the birth of the universe. It's right there. And we would eat in the meantime, and there would be a normal plastic table, but your virtual eyes would augment it into, I don't know what, table made out of glass or champagne or water or whatever, it doesn't matter. And we could be in a castle that has 1,000 rooms or 1,000,000 rooms, it doesn't really matter because I just put one more zero after it. It doesn't cost me, a golden floor costs me the same like wooden floor in virtual space.
You still cannot hold the hand though.
Well, we would be together.
All right, okay.
In the restaurant.
Okay.
Only the
you create your atmosphere, ambience.
And if it would be with a male, female, you could be, or I could be Catwoman, and you could be Batman. You would look like Brad Pitt. I would look like Angelina Jolie. This is already possible today.
Okay, good.
So yeah, that I think will work much better. We will learn a little bit how to have 20, 30 people online, but the people that I have asked, and I have had maybe 500 people online. Majority of them enjoy this more than a classical lecture. If you include into it the travel there and back,
Sure.
that you can have your own glass of wine at home.
We have also especially experienced now with both our board meetings as well as the webinars instead of breakfast
Right.
meetings, so
Right.
that they're much more efficient. The attendance is higher, so
Yep.
it's definitely the way
Yep.
to go. That's for sure.
Yeah, people can't be late.
And they can't be late. Well, you
Well,
can.
I can, but if you have an office at your home, it's kind of hard to be late, right? It's just
Well, you have
rub
you
off
have
the
to-
night from
you
your
have-
eyes.
You have to get out of bed.
Yes.
Move from one room to another. Okay, Andrea, I guess that's you, Andrea, isn't it? So, if we consider the price we paid or will pay as a global economy with its full consequences, has the lockdown been worth it? Question mark.
Good question. I think the lockdown was proper. It had to happen. We didn't know what to do. It could have really been deadly. The countries that didn't do lockdowns. Sweden is still a mystery. We don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But otherwise, all other countries, even those like Britain, we're not going to do anything. We're going to, let it just go through. Or Trump in the United States, are regretting this.
Of
And
course.
our preemptively chickened out approach to COVID turned out to be actually pretty okay. Czech ones, which surprised me quite a lot. Was it worth it? Economically, look at it from the position of Greta. I'll give Andrea. I'll give a little twist to your question. Greta wanted. So see how many Nordic topics we are driving the world. This is really fascinating.
And we're in the driving seat.
You are in the driving seat. Equal rights for males and females is very much of a
Sure.
Nordic topic. Green ecology or economy is also very much of your topic. And
We have the luxury of being an older economy with
Right.
established values and
Right.
industries.
so you can play around.
So and
in
money
thoughts.
as well. So it's
Right.
it's been a luxury to have that, of course.
And Greta wanted to say, could we maybe slow down the air traffic by maybe 10 or 20%, please? Because da-di-da-di. And everybody went, all the adults went, no, that's impossible. The whole economy, whoa. I mean, how would we do this? And then suddenly,
It's
every 100% of the commercial flights were grounded. And, surprise, we survived just fine. Not the airlines, but it was
not
something
the
that we
airlines,
did.
not me, but the rest of you.
But the 99.9% of people actually, and the planet realized that, hey, we can breathe.
They got a break,
As I said, there are more people alive today than they were before the COVID crisis. We are breathing cleaner air. We've learned something that all our advisors, super duper rich, expensive companies tried to teach us. We learned it ourselves in a day, just work virtually. And we've also rested and relaxed, and we reconnected with our families. Global village, which is something that Zygmunt Bauman talks about, became real village. I mean, Prague, lesser town where we met each other 2 weeks ago, that really is no longer global village, it's just a village.
It's truly a village.
So I think it has. I think it has been worth it, and also the debt that the governments will now accumulate will be exceptionally large. But they will not be read as the Greek debt. The Greek debt was understood as Greeks not really doing their things right and being too lavish for the amount of taxes they have, and blah 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 blah. It's their fault. In some way, the rhetoric was, it's your fault, Italy. It's your fault, Greece. This time, everybody understands that it's not your fault. So it doesn't have this moral. You misbehaved. So. Why am I saying this? I believe that the governments will be able to take much bigger amounts of debt than they could in pre-crisis time, and the markets will be fine with it. We, of course, have to pay it back, and this is also something that we will simply have to slow down the economy. So if it was this quick before, now it's slowed down to this. If we find a balance like this, I think it would be fine. We would be also able to pay back the debts if we take a little bit of the speed and we recuperate it into paying back for the debt, we should be fine. The economy
Well,
shouldn't
let's
collapse.
hope so.
Let's hope so.
Okay, next one out. This is Björn again. Or let's take Emilia, because what, if anything, are we missing out? There it moved. What, if anything, are we missing out on for humanity when moving into the cloud? EQ.
Emotional intelligence, is that?
EQ, probably.
Yeah.
Creativity, that happens of unexpected meeting between people, etc.
So, Emilia, great question. First of all, a little joke. Did you realize that the cloud isn't really in the cloud? It's not there. Where your data is stored isn't on some flying zeppelin
Cloud.
that is sitting in the cloud. Your data, that world which is in the cloud, is actually somewhere 3 meters down in some desert in Arizona, I suppose. I don't even know. So when you're downloading, you're really uploading. And when you're uploading,
You're downloading.
you're downloading. It's the other. It's not there. It's actually below you. But the question was, yeah, we will lose certain things. We will lose physical touch, for example. We now can shake hands, right? That's the only touch that we actually do in standard meetings. We don't touch each other except maybe when we dance.
Sure, but that's...
But this is something that we have missed, and I think we will lose it very soon. But we won't lose randomness. I mean, I've met a couple of new people during WhatsApp. I mean, like web meetings, and the debates that I had with my friends when we were. Everybody was having his own little glass of wine or beer at home. The debates we had were I would say maybe deeper than the ones we have when we meet in the pub. But
could be. It's also, well, humanity is it's also interrelations and between man and woman, and if everybody sits on the computer, it might get lost some touch of it, and become very boxy.
We will lose
checking what the other person is like and clicking for that. Somebody will be left out there as well.
Yeah, but that's in a way already happening in a small degree today. It's like the wolves. Or when human beings, we moved out of the forest and we started building cities, we also lost touch with the nature, for example. I can't even tell a tree properly which one is which, and I don't know the birds and things like that.
Takes two of us. Makes two of us.
There you go. But our forefathers, I'm sure, they knew, they were in touch with nature much more than... but we will become omnipresent, we will become a spiritual entity, and we will be able to travel with the speed of light. If we will be able to completely download ourselves, then we can live in a different dimension.
We won't get further than the desert in Arizona, right?
Well, as long as we'll be able to have... so, for example, computers, a chipset, only needs very few things. It only needs certain temperature. It doesn't, for example, need oxygen.
No, I know.
It doesn't need sunlight. It doesn't need nutrition. It doesn't need... While a biological form... Which is also interesting because we somehow believe that the biological form is the final form of intelligence or meaning or purpose or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And maybe we are just a small little step in between stones and digital computers. After all, the molecules and the atoms that make your body once were animal. Before that they were plants, before that they were stone, and even before that you were part of a star which exploded millions of light years away. So we've been there during the Big Bang. We have a tendency to say that Big Bang is something that happened in the past, and we were there. Our consciousness wasn't formed like cell phone still was. It was a stone, it wasn't a cell phone, but the matter was the same. And it's nowhere written that a biological form, a very fragile form of existence, is the final form. And maybe a last word, if you actually study the religious texts, either from Buddha or from the Bible or from Quran or from other sources, they all describe afterlife very much like virtual reality.
Yeah.
Will we have a body?
The soul lays there, not the body.
Yeah, yeah, but we will have some sort of a how do you call this, avatar bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We will be able to experience adventures. We will be able to see good and evil. We will be able to be a little bit like gods, creating our own stories, creating our own rules, creating our own new plots
Worlds,
and everything,
yeah.
new world. So maybe when we meet in 30 years, as a gift, I will give you 2 years in Star Wars.
Okay.
How about that? You can be Luke Skywalker,
Or
for
I
example.
could...
Or in
Matrix.
Matrix. That would be a
Matrix.
gift. The movie will last 2 years,
I'll go home and watch it.
and you will live it. Don't watch it. If
I wait for it
if
and
you
live
survive
it.
20 years without watching it,
Okay.
just give me 30 more.
Absolutely.
And you will be able not just to see the Matrix, but to really act and live as if it was real.
Yes. Okay, so let's do a couple of questions more. Here's one anonymous one. With the lesson we have learned from the pandemic, will the economy come out stronger and maybe with a better work and life balance?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that
I think is a yes, and I don't want everything to go back to the original.
And then it's Björn who had the first question, and they do do development. So it's bad news for that everybody will move home. For both office and residence developers, should we go into the chata business?
Chata business, Björn, I think is a great name for a great new phenomenon. And yes, it will be, in my imagination, it will be sort of new. How to call this? New. Rustic way of living, that you will have a nice
Back to the
chata,
natural one.
back to nature. We will be hipsters,
but you're
we will
still
be plowing our own tomatoes and just for fun, but the whole life will be happening somewhere
on the phone
on the phone, but
or via the phone.
Chata, what was the name?
Chata it is.
Chata, the two words that Björn connected together. Chata business, I think, is a great idea. Yeah, centers of the cities will change, and we will live in small communities, but in this new nation of internet.
Okay, Andrea, another one. When the virtual world will be so fake that we will have to revert to IRL, I'm thinking of deep fake technology or mental health and our need to congregate? Question mark.
The virtual world will be fake, but so, and this, the trickster comes in here.
Well, the chata is you reverting to RL in one way, you know, but you're still living the world through your. So I guess that's the answer.
That's a good answer. I think there will be like revolutionary guards that will be taking the virtual glasses away from people, a little bit like in Matrix, and there will be resistance, and there will be maybe, I don't know, 10-15% of people who choose to, like Amish, don't use electricity. This generation will not use the virtual goggles or glasses, and they will want to feel the real. That's a short, stupid answer to a good question.
I think on that note, I believe we are finished, and we will now make a 10-minute break before we go through the agenda of the AGM, what we have to do. And Tomas, I would thank you 100 million times for coming.
Thank you very much.
And
it was really
pleasure seeing you again.
And
but I must say, I can't wait till blue light opens again, and we can have a drink after 11.
Absolutely.